Hey, and welcome back to another video. So this is my first video on this channel that I'll be covering game consoles with. I usually cover phones and iPods and stuff like that, but I also have a huge collection of game consoles. So I thought, might as well start a series of videos on these. So this is the first video. But before jumping in, don't forget to like this video, hit that like button over there and check out my channel. And if you like what you see, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Also turn on your bell notification button over there so you can get notified whenever I upload a new video. I'm on Instagram and Discord as well, so you can find me on those using the links down in the description below. Okay, let's jump right in. So recognizing backwards compatible PS3s. These things, the backwards compatible ones, they're getting pretty rare. They're already pretty rare, and they're getting rarer as people are turning them into collectibles. They're basically highly sought after collectible items, and I have one over here. This is the 80 gig model, and I have one that's not backwards compatible here for comparison. And the first point you want to note to recognize a backwards compatible PS3 is if you have one of these ones, like the third generation. Let me turn to my wide angle. There we are. So we have a third generation PS3 here. These are not backwards compatible. This and the second generation, the one with the more matte finish, I don't have one of those. But these, if you have one of these are downright not backwards compatible. This is the last iteration of the PS3. This is the most reliable and the one that does not have problems, but it's also not backwards compatible and it doesn't look that great. The others the second gen, in my opinion, looks the nicest. I don't have one of those yet. But if you want backwards compatibility, you got to have one of these chunky ones. One of the chunky boys. So first thing, you got to have a Fat PS3. That's the starting point. Now, I'm going to try and do this with this minimum space I have. Now, first, let's look at the second point when it comes to a backwards compatible PS3. And that's the USB ports at the bottom. Now, I'm using my wide angle lens, so it's not going to look as great when I'm on my normal lens. But as you can see here, it has 4 USB ports at the bottom. All backwards compatible PS3s have 4 USB ports at the bottom. The non-backwards compatible one, as you can see over there, have only 2. There are only 2 USB ports, and this is the same for all 3 models of the backwards compatible. There is the 20 gig, 60 gig, and 80 gig. I have the 80 gig here, and I'll show you the serial number stuff later. Not serial, the model number. I'll do that at the end, but it's always got to have 4 USB ports. If it doesn't, it's not backwards compatible. Now, let's jump to the second point. This has to do more with the labeling. Now, as you can see, let me just get this. Let me get my camera off its stand and show you up close. So here's the backwards compatible one. And if you can see, this has a very reflective logo up top. The logo is pretty reflective. It's shiny. Now, these older devices, they might be scratched up, so the shine can reduce. But if you see one that has a shiny logo like that, that's a clear indication that it's backwards compatible, because the ones that aren't backwards compatible, the logo is not that shiny. It's more metallic. I don't know if that's showing up on camera, but that logo is more dull and more metallic. And if I bring them closer together, again, it's not showing up well on camera. But this, as you can see, when I show it separately, it's more shiny. It's more chromy. This is really dull and really flat. It's not shiny. So the backwards compatible ones, the logo is shiny. The PlayStation 3 logo, it's shiny and it's reflective. Non-backwards compatible, it's not reflective. Now, sticking to the theme of reflective logos and stuff, the accent, as you can see here, this chrome accent on the backwards compatible one is really shiny and reflective, as you can see there. See, it's really shiny, really reflective. And like before, the non-backwards compatible one, it's really dull. As you can see, it's not reflective. It's really, really dull. Same as the logo. So backwards compatible ones, remember, the one on the left is the backwards compatible one. it's shiny. The logo is shiny, and this over here is shiny as well, the accents. In the non-backwards compatible one, it's dull. And then moving on to the bottom, now I spoke about the USB ports earlier, but if you look at this strip here, this thing, this accent-like thing, this thing is also shiny, as you can see there. But on the non-backwards compatible one, it's just a black piece of plastic. It's pretty dull, as you can see there. Sorry about all the dust. I have not wiped these in a long time. They're pretty old and they've been sitting. So sorry about the dust. So shiny means backwards compatible. Reflective, chrome, whatever you want to call it. I just call it shiny. They're backwards compatible. Dull is not backwards compatible. Now, if you're looking at a listing and if it's an authentic listing, there's another great way to prove these are backwards compatible. And it's very simple. This flap. The backwards compatible one has a flap like this. And underneath this flap, we have expansion slots. We have CF, we have Mini and SD, and we have a Memory Stick Pro slot as well. All backwards compatible ones have this slot. Sometimes this thing would be broken and missing because they're really fragile. Mine's pretty loose too, but mine's still staying in place. But you'll still see these ports. On the backwards compatible one, you gotta have these ports, and there are lights at each port, as you can see there, small indicator lights. So if this is missing, that's fine. As long as the ports are there, you're good. That's backwards compatible. This, it's not a flap. You can't open it. There are no expansion slots. It's just a piece of plastic. If the seller hasn't opened it like this on his listing, look for these 3 dots. Let me bring that in closer. As you can see here, this has a grip, like just to make like a textured, it's just 3 dots. So you can open it easily. That just shows that you can open it from there. The backwards compatible one has these 3 dots, these textured dots like bumps. The non-backwards compatible has nothing of the sort, as you can see here. It's just clean, flat surface. That's another point. Backwards compatible, not backwards compatible. So going down to the bottom again, as you can see, we have vents here. This bottom vent that's in parallel to the USB ports. Now again, the full USB ports. And we have a vent over there, a set of vents on the backwards compatible one. On the non-backwards compatible one, we do have vents up top there, but parallel to the USB ports, we don't have any vents. Now, the backwards compatible ones they used to overheat way more than the non-backwards compatible ones. So that's why they needed a lot of cooling. So that's why they have extra vents. This thing, as you can see, the non-backwards compatible one, it has no vents. So if you look at that, you can see non-backwards compatible, no vents. Backwards compatible has those vents. Okay, so I moved locations just temporarily because I cannot show you these because they're really minor details. I want to come to a better place with more light. So we've turned them onto the side, and here's the backwards compatible one. Here's the non-backwards compatible one. Now, if you look at the hard drive bay, this is the hard drive bay, by the way. The hard drive's in there. You can see these lines. Now, these are really subtle lines. They're actually grooves, not lines. They go into the plastic. These lines cut through the hard drive bay cover. As you can see, they're a part of the hard drive bay cover. They complete the line when you put it in. When you put the drive back in, this completes the continuous line, continuous groove, as you can see there. But on the non-backwards compatible one, as you can see, the hard drive bay cover is not a part of this groove. They're separate. It's just completely separate from this groove. Let me show you together. See? Not part of a groove, part of a groove. The groove goes through this cover and it doesn't do over here. Also, this has vents over here. As you can see here, the backwards compatible one, it has vents. And this does not have vents over here. And again, this comes back to the point saying this thing overheated quite a lot. It had so much parts in it, it needed that extra cooling, hence the extra amount of vents. And I've got more vents to show you in a bit as well. Okay, so we're at the back here, and I'd like to show you some differences here as well. So first thing, you look at these ports. In the backwards compatible one, we got HDMI, LAN, digital optical out, and AV out in that order. In the non-backwards compatible one, we got AV, optical, HDMI, and LAN. So in that order. See, as you can see, the orders are completely different. When you look from this end, the thin-like end to the fatter end, thin-like end to the fatter end, you can see there's clearly a difference in layout. Also, on the backwards compatible one, these ports are closer to the main power switch over here. As you can see, there's nothing in between them. But in the non-backwards compatible one, we have the information and the serial number over here, and there's a big gap. And then we have these power switch, and these are all on this side. So there is a big gap difference. Also, you look at the vents, you can see there are two separate vents on the backwards compatible one with a spacer in the middle. But on the non-backwards compatible one, it's just one single slimmer vent. So as you can see for yourself, I don't really have to talk. There is clearly a difference between these two. And again, sorry for the bad lighting. These are reflective, and even an iPhone 11's camera has its limits. So let's move on to the bottom now. So now we're at the bottom of the devices, and looking again on this side, the backwards compatible, non-backwards compatible. Again, another easy way to recognize is, like I said in the middle, in the beginning, shiny accent, non-shiny accent, but I already covered that, but you can see that from the bottom as well. Another main noticing feature that you'll notice between the difference between these two is this square bunch of vents over here. Now this also has big vents at the bottom here, but it's missing that square vent. Then this is the non-backwards compatible. It does not have a extra vent. As you can see in this thing, we got square-ish looking vent here. We don't got one over here. So there's none on this, but it has one over here. Same goes for the back. It has a square vent at the back, while this doesn't have it either. Also, on the backwards compatible one, we have a very weird shaped vent here, like it's curving around the curve of the device. Again, another vent there, and no vent over here. So as you can see, there's clearly a difference between the two. You got vent here, vent here, vent here. None, none, none. That's the easy giveaway from you when you're looking at it from the bottom. Another slight thing that I don't really look for is on the backwards compatible one, the vents over here are actual vents, whilst on the non-backwards compatible one, these aren't really vents. They're more like just aesthetic. As you can see, there's no openings, but these are actually vents. Opening, no openings, actual openings. Backwards compatible, non-backwards compatible. All right, so we're here at the back again for the final point, and this is probably the easiest giveaway to recognize a backwards compatible from a non-backwards compatible. And if the seller hasn't put a photo of the model number, you could request one, and if he's not giving you, then that's clearly a red flag there. So the backwards compatible ones will always be CECH, A01, B01, or E01, like this one. So A01, E01, and B01. So I'll put them on screen here. So the 80 gig that I have here is E01. That's the 80 gig model. The 60 gig is A01. And the 20 gig is B01. So CECH, A01, B01, and E01. Now the E01 is the 80 gig model like I have here. This is the one that's software backwards compatible, so it emulates the PS2. Whereas the 60 gig and 20 gig backwards compatible ones, they have actual chips on board, like actual PS2 chips that run PS2 games. But this one, the 80 gig one, is actually an emulator, so it's only software based, but it still has more components than a standard non-backwards compatible one, because this is considerably heavier than this one. But obviously when you're looking for a listing on eBay, you can't tell the weight. The 60 and 20 gig are even more heavier because they've got more parts on the inside. So let's go on to the non-backwards compatible one. they will be H01, CECH, 1, and there are some more letters I'm not really sure. But if you want a backwards compatible one, E01, A01, and B01. Those three are the only ones that are backwards compatible. The others, I'll link them down in the description below to Sony's website, and there is a whole list of backwards and non-backwards compatible ones. The ones that say limited are these ones, the backwards compatible ones. The ones that say no are not backwards compatible at all. So limited, I don't know why they put it as limited, but they are backwards compatible. And the link to that will be down in the description below. It's from Sony's website. You can go check it out. And the final point that I'd like to make is if you want to play PS3 games and you're really looking for a PS3, don't go for these backwards compatible ones, or don't go for these older chunky ones in general. Always go for a newer one like the 3rd gen. It doesn't look the greatest, but it's the most reliable. Or go for the second one. The second one had a few issues, but not too much. And the second one looks the best in my opinion, the 2nd gen. But if you don't want problems, you can go straight for this. This has a easy to recognize sliding DVD Blu-ray drive, and it's got this textured stripe pattern up top. But if you want a collectible PS3, then sure, the backwards compatible one is the one to beat. It's really rare, and it's for a game collector, it's something that you really should have. And I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on the 60 gig and 20 gig, because this one's the 80 gig. Then I have my full collection. But yeah, that's the end to this video, and I hope this helped you with deciding whether your PS3 is backwards compatible or not, or whether the eBay listing you're looking at is authentic or not. And yeah, I hope that helped you out. Don't forget to like this video and check out my channel. And if you like what you see, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And again, I apologize for the bad video quality. The reflective surfaces aren't helping. Thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in my next video.